It was cold that night, the kind of cold that crawls beneath your coat and sits on your bones. My driver had missed the turn onto the expressway, and that's when I saw it, two figures huddled under the bridge, barely lit by the flicker of a dying street lamp. One small. One grown. A man and a baby. Something in me said look closer. So I told the driver to stop. He hesitated. This isn't a safe area. But my heart was already out the door before he could finish. I stepped into the wind, my heels crunching over gravel, breath fogging in front of my face. The city smelled like oil and rain, but underneath it all, I could smell something else. Desperation. The closer I got, the clearer I saw. A young man was sitting against a pillar, coat torn, cradling a baby wrapped in a thin blanket. His head was down, lips trembling as he hummed some broken tune just to keep the child calm. And then the streetlight flickered just right, and I froze. That jawline. Those eyes. That tiny dimple just like his mother's. My heart dropped straight to the pavement. "Michael?" I whispered. The young man looked up, startled. For a moment, he didn't say a word, just stared at me like I was some ghost from a life he'd buried long ago. "Grandma?" The word came out shaky, like it didn't belong to him anymore. "Yes. I'm Emily, 65, born and raised in Atlanta. I've seen storms in my life, child, real ones. But that night, under that bridge, I met a kind of storm no weather report could warn me about. A grandmother finding her lost grandson, and his baby, homeless. I took a step closer, hands trembling. Lord, have mercy. Michael, what happened to you? He flinched, pulling the baby closer. Please don't come too close. Boy, it's me. I dropped to my knees right there on that filthy ground, my knees screaming but my heart louder. It's Grandma. You remember my voice, don't you? The baby stirred, tiny whimper filling the cold air. Michael's eyes softened, but I could see the shame all over him. I didn't want you to see me like this, he said, voice breaking. I thought you hated me. Hated you? I whispered. Child, there's nothing in this world that could make me hate you. He shook his head, tears tracing dirt down his cheeks. Mom said you never wanted to see me again. That you said I ruined your name. My chest tightened. Patricia. My daughter. The lies she told were finally standing in front of me, in the shape of my starving grandson and that fragile little angel in his arms. For a second, I couldn't breathe. I took off my coat and wrapped it around the baby. What's her name? Lily, he said softly. She's 3 months old. Lily. The name alone could melt heaven's gates. She was tiny, face red from the cold, fingers barely peeking out from that worn blanket. I touched her cheek, and she smiled, just a little. Michael, I said, swallowing back tears, you're coming with me. Both of you. He shook his head, panic flashing in his eyes. No, Grandma. I can't. I've got nowhere to go. I don't belong anywhere anymore. Then you'll belong with me. He started to cry, really cry this time. The kind that comes from deep inside a man's chest, where pride and pain live together. I held his face in my hands. You hear me? You are not alone. The wind howled under that bridge, but for a moment, I didn't feel it. I felt his heartbeat under my palms, the baby's soft breaths against my chest, and I knew this wasn't chance. God himself had driven me down that wrong road tonight. Because sometimes, miracles don't look like light. Sometimes, they look like two lost souls under a bridge, waiting for someone to remember their names. If you're still with me till now, please take a second, like, subscribe, and share this story. And tell me in the comments what city you're from, and what you would have done if you were in my shoes that night. I believe sharing our thoughts helps us all grow closer, one story at a time. I helped Michael stand. His legs were shaking from exhaustion. Let's get you both warm, I said. My car's right there. He hesitated again. You really mean it? You'll take us? Baby, I smiled through tears, I didn't come this far just to leave you here. We walked slowly toward the car, me holding Lily close, him limping beside me like a man half awake from a nightmare. When the driver saw us, his eyes widened. Drive, I said firmly. And keep the heat on. Inside the car, Lily's cries softened as I rocked her gently. The city lights passed like ghosts outside the window. I watched Michael's reflection in the glass, his hollow cheeks, his tired eyes, and wondered what kind of pain could have pushed my grandson to the streets. He caught me looking and whispered, "You shouldn't have come." I touched his hand. And yet I did. He looked away, silent again. There were questions piling up in my mind. Where was her mother? Why didn't Patricia tell me? What happened to my family? But right then, I knew asking would only reopen wounds still bleeding. So I just sat there, holding his child like she was mine. Every few minutes, I glanced down at her tiny face. She was sleeping now, peaceful, unaware that her little world had just been lifted from the dirt and carried toward hope. When we reached the hangar, the jet lights were glowing like a promise. My pilot stepped forward. "Evening, Mrs. Emerson. Shall I prepare for takeoff?" "Yes," I said softly. "We're going home." Michael's voice cracked. "Home?" I looked at him, smiling through tears. "Yes, baby. Home." As we climbed the steps to the plane, I glanced back one last time at the bridge, dark, cold, empty again. That was where I found them. But deep down, I knew, that bridge wasn't just a place. It was a test. And tonight, love passed it. But I could feel something stirring ahead, something heavier than the night air. Because love can rescue, yes, but it can't erase the past. And somewhere in that past was the reason my grandson ended up under that bridge in the first place. And I was about to find out. The car ride to the airport was quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, the heavy kind, the kind that sits between people who've seen too much and said too little. Eli sat beside me, his baby girl pressed to his chest, eyes glued to the window. Every few minutes he'd rock her gently, whispering something I couldn't quite hear. His hands were shaking, but he tried to hide it. I could see the exhaustion etched deep into his face. I didn't want to push him. Not yet. Some wounds can't stand the light too soon. Charles drove steady, the hum of the engine filling the space where words couldn't. The rain had eased up by the time we pulled through the private gate. The jet was already waiting, sleek, silver, and gleaming under the hangar lights. It looked almost unreal against the night sky, like something out of a life Eli had forgotten existed. He stared at it, frozen on the pavement, clutching Lily close. "Grandma, this don't feel real," he murmured. "It's real, baby," I said softly. "You're safe now. Both of you." He looked down at the ground. "I don't know if I can do this." I stepped closer, laying a hand on his shoulder. "Do what?" "Go back," he whispered. "Back to people, back to a world that left me out here." My heart twisted. I wanted to tell him the world hadn't left him, that it was his own family, our family, that did. But I bit my tongue. Some truths had to wait. "Sometimes you don't go back, Eli," I said instead. "You start over." He lifted his eyes, searching my face, and for the first time since I'd found him, I saw a flicker of something there, not hope exactly, but maybe the memory of it. The pilot stepped down the stairs and gave me a nod. "We're all set, Weather's clear. You can board whenever you're ready." I smiled politely and motioned for Eli to go first. He hesitated at the bottom of the steps, his gaze flicking between the bridge that lived behind us and the jet that waited ahead. Then, with a long breath, he started climbing. Inside, the warmth hit him like a wave. Plush seats, soft lights, quiet hum, everything the opposite of the world he'd been living in. He stood there for a moment, not knowing where to sit, looking small in a space meant for comfort he didn't trust anymore. I guided him gently to one of the recliners. "Here," I said, helping him ease down. "You can rest. There's food if you want it." He shook his head. "I don't want to eat." Lily fussed a little in his arms, her tiny whimpers filling the cabin. I reached for a blanket, one of those soft cashmere ones I always kept on board. I wrapped it around her, and she quieted instantly, sinking into the warmth. Eli's eyes followed my hands. "She likes you," he said quietly. "She's just like her daddy," I smiled faintly. "She can feel love when it's near." He looked away, swallowing hard. The engines roared to life, and the jet began to move. I could feel the tremor under my feet as we rolled toward the runway. Out the window, the lights blurred, streaks of gold against the black. "Hold on," I whispered. The jet lifted, and with it, so did a piece of the weight that had been crushing me. The city fell away beneath us, the bridges, the cold streets, all of it shrinking to nothing. For a while, neither of us said a word. I watched the clouds drift past, white and endless, and I thought about how strange it was to be flying high above the same world that had broken us. After a long silence, Eli spoke. "Grandma, I never thought I'd see you again." "Me neither," I said. "But God has his ways." He gave a soft laugh, bitter at the edges. "If God had his way, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have had to." He stopped himself, glancing down at the baby. "You wouldn't have had to what?" I asked gently. He didn't answer right away. The hum of the jet filled the air, steady and low. "Finally," he whispered, "I wouldn't have had to choose between eating and feeding her." My throat tightened. "Eli, I tried everything," he went on. "I begged for work. Slept in shelters till they kicked me out. When people saw the baby, they'd look at me like I was filth. Like I was just some junkie that didn't deserve her." I reached across the aisle, touched his hand. "You did what you had to do to keep her alive. That's love, baby. Don't you ever be ashamed of that." He blinked, tears spilling down his face. "But you don't know the rest." "The rest?" He hesitated, staring out the window at the moonlight breaking through the clouds. "It wasn't just bad luck, Grandma. I didn't end up under that bridge by accident." Something cold crept up my spine. "What are you saying?" He looked back at me then, eyes glassy but fierce. "Someone made sure I lost everything. Someone in the family." The air in that jet went still. Even the hum of the engines felt quieter. I leaned forward. "What do you mean, someone in the family?" He shook his head. "I can't talk about it. Not yet. Eli." He lifted a hand, shaking. "Please. Just let me rest tonight. I'll tell you soon. I promise." I sat back, my chest tight with questions I couldn't ask. Outside, the stars were scattered like tiny witnesses, glimmering over a sky too big for all the pain inside that cabin. Eli leaned his head against the seat, the baby's soft breathing against his chest lulling him toward sleep. I watched him for a long while, that same little boy who used to run barefoot through my garden, now a man haunted by secrets too heavy for his years. And as the jet cut through the night, I whispered a prayer only God could hear. "Whatever this darkness is, Lord, don't let it follow him home." Because deep down, I knew this flight wasn't just taking us away from something. It was taking us straight toward the truth. And the truth, that was something I wasn't sure either of us was ready to face. The jet hummed steady as we cut through the clouds. The world below was sleeping, lights scattered like little promises across the dark. Eli had dozed off for a while, but I could tell even in his sleep, peace was something he didn't know how to hold anymore. His shoulders twitched, his brows furrowed, like he was fighting ghosts that wouldn't leave him be. I sat across from him, hands wrapped around a cup of chamomile tea I hadn't touched. My thoughts were loud, louder than the engines outside. How long had my grandson been living like that? How could I have missed it? Was I really so wrapped up in my own world that I didn't see him slip in through the cracks? I glanced at Lily, her little face nestled against her daddy's chest, one hand clutching his shirt. She was brae-thin, soft, innocent. That baby was the only piece of pure light left in that boy's life, and maybe the only thing that could pull him out of whatever darkness had chased him here. The pilot's voice came through the intercom. "Mrs. Emerson, we're level at 38,000 feet. Estimated arrival, 3 hours." "Thank you, Rick," I said quietly. Eli stirred, his eyes fluttering open. He looked around like he had to remind himself where he was. Then his gaze found me, and for a moment, I saw the little boy he used to be. "Grandma," he croaked. "I'm here, baby. You hungry?" He shook his head. "Just thirsty." I poured him a glass of water and handed it over. His hands trembled a bit when he took it. He sipped slow, like even that felt unfamiliar. For a few minutes, the only sounds were the soft hum of the engines and Lily's quiet breaths. Then Eli spoke again. I told you earlier that someone in the family made sure I lost everything. My heart skipped. Yes. He looked down at his hands. You deserve to know. But I need you to promise me something first. Anything. Don't hate me after I tell you. I frowned. Eli, there ain't nothing in this world that could make me hate you. He gave a sad smile. You say that now. He leaned back, eyes fixed on the ceiling, like he was trying to remember how to breathe. You remember after Dad died? When Mom remarried? Yes, it broke my heart, but I tried to be happy for her. Well, she wasn't happy. Not for long. He paused, swallowing hard. Her new husband, he wasn't who he pretended to be. He was mean, Grandma. He was the kind of man who smiled at church but broke things at home. And when I turned 18, he told me there wasn't enough room for 2 men in that house. I froze. Eli. He threw me out. Said if Mom loved me, she could follow me. But she didn't. She stayed. My throat closed up. She stayed? He nodded slowly. Told me I was a grown man and I needed to learn the world. But Grandma, I wasn't ready. I had nothing. No money, no job, not even a real place to go. I slept in my car for 2 weeks before it got repossessed. I covered my mouth, fighting tears. She never told me that. Not one word. I know. Because she told me not to tell you. Said she didn't want to burden you with her mistakes. His voice cracked on that word, mistakes. But it wasn't her mistakes that hurt me most, Grandma. It was knowing she could still eat dinner in that house while I was out there starving. I couldn't speak. The pain in his voice was too raw, too real. He took another shaky breath. Then I met Tasha. She was good to me. At first. Said she believed in me when no one else did. We got married. And when Lily came along, I thought things were finally changing. But I was wrong again. My pulse quickened. What happened? He rubbed his face, whispering, she left us. One morning, she packed a bag and said she was going to the store. Never came back. I gasped. She left you with the baby? He nodded. Didn't even leave a note. I called, texted, begged her family to tell me where she was. Nothing. I found out later she moved in with another man in another state. Said she was tired of living broke. Oh, Lord, I whispered. I tried, Grandma. I worked when I could, but people look at a man with a baby and they see a problem. Not a person. It got harder. Rent went up. Bills piled up. I started sleeping in my car again, till that got towed too. And when the shelters stopped Tarkeen in single fathers, I ran out of options. That's when I ended up under that bridge. Tears filled my eyes before I even realized they were falling. All that time, all that pain, and nobody came for you. He gave a hollow laugh. Nobody but you. I reached out, gripping his hand tight. Eli, I'm so sorry. I should have been there. I should have fought harder to keep you close. He squeezed my hand back. You couldn't have known, Grandma. They made sure of that. They told you I was doing fine. Mom even sent you those fake pictures of me with jobs I never had. My jaw dropped. She lied to me. She did, he said quietly. Because she didn't want you asking questions. Didn't want anyone knowing the truth about what really went on in that house. I sat there in stunned silence. My daughter, my own flesh and blood, had done that. The cabin lights flickered slightly as the plane shifted through a pocket of turbulence. Eli glanced toward the baby, making sure she was still sleeping. Then he leaned closer, voice low. But that's not the worst part. A chill ran down my spine. What do you mean? He hesitated, breath in deep. Before I left, he said something to me. Mom's husband. He said, if you ever tell anyone what you saw in this house, I'll make sure you disappear. My stomach dropped. What you saw? He looked at me, tears in his eyes. I can't tell you yet. I want to, but I can't. Not till I know Lily's safe. He's got people, Grandma. People who watch. I wanted to argue, to tell him he was safe now, but something in his tone stopped me. There was fear there, not just of relevant trauma, but of danger that still lingered. I reached over, brushed a tear off his cheek. You don't have to tell me tonight, baby. You rest. When you're ready, I'll listen. And when you're ready to fight, I'll fight beside you. He nodded, eyes glistening. Thank you, Grandma. We sat there in the quiet, two souls bound by pain but reaching for peace. The jet glided steady through the clouds, the world outside looking calm and endless, the kind of calm you know can't last forever. I looked at him one last time before closing my eyes, whispering to myself, Lord, whatever truth my grandson's carry in, give me the strength to face it with him. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about uncovering what destroyed our family in the first place. And somewhere up in that sky, I could feel it. The storm was far from over. The real turbulence hadn't even begun. The house had never felt so full, yet so cold at the same time. The sound of silverware clinking against porcelain echoed through the dining room like raindrops on glass. Everyone was there, me, my daughter Patricia, my grandson Michael, and little baby Lily nestled in her carrier beside the table. You'd think a dinner like that would feel like healing, family coming back together after years of pain. But no. There was a tension so thick in the air that even the walls seemed to hold their breath. I'd been trying all day to make it right. I cooked Michael's favorite, honey-glazed ham, buttered cornbread, and my old Sunday sweet potatoes. I wanted warmth. I wanted to remind them all what love used to taste like in this house. But as soon as Patricia walked in, perfume heavy, smile tighter than a drum, I knew peace wasn't on the menu tonight. Wow, she said, setting her purse on the counter. You went all out. Almost looks like a celebration. Her tone wasn't thankful. It was sharp, like she wanted to slice through the calm I was trying to build. Michael kept his eyes down. Hey, Mom, he murmured. She gave him a long look, then her gaze shifted to Lily. So that's her? Her name's Lily, I said quickly, before Michael could shrink any smaller. She's beautiful, isn't she? Patricia shrugged. I suppose. Shame about the circumstances, though. The way she said it, like the baby was a burden instead of a blessing, made my heart ache. Michael tensed. What's that supposed to mean? Patricia sat down, crossing her legs like she owned the place. It means you had a baby you can't provide for, Michael. You were living under a bridge. What were you thinking? I was thinking I was doing my best, he shot back, his voice shaking. You kicked me out, remember? I gave you rules, she snapped. You broke every one of them. You dropped out of school, you ran around with that girl. That girl was the mother of your grandchild, he interrupted, eyes blazing. Patricia leaned forward. And where is she now, her? Where's this girl who was supposed to make everything worth it? The silence hit hard. Michael looked down at his plate. His fork trembled in his hand. She's gone, he whispered. She passed away 2 months ago. Patricia froze. The bite of cornbread she'd been holding slipped back to her plate. For a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes, maybe guilt, maybe fear, but it vanished just as quickly. Oh, she said flatly. I'm sorry to hear that. Sorry. That's all she could say. I wanted to scream. Instead, I reached for Michael's hand under the table. His skin was cold, his pulse racing. You're safe now, I whispered to him. You and Lily both. That's what matters. Patricia's eyes darted to our hands. Safe? You think keeping him here is safe? Excuse me? I said. She sighed. Mom, look at him. He's broken. He needs structure, not pity. And this, she gestured around the room, this house isn't a rehab center. He needs to face the real world. Michael's voice cracked. The real world already kicked me to the street, Mom. Patricia's jaw tightened. Because you refused to grow up. Something inside me snapped. Enough. I said, my voice louder than I intended. The room went still. Even Lily stopped fussing for a moment. You don't get to stand here and lecture him about growing up when you turned your back on him when he needed his mother the most. Patricia's eyes went wide. So now I'm the villain? I stood. You let my grandson sleep under a bridge, Patricia. You told him I wanted nothing to do with him. You lied. What kind of mother does that? Her voice trembled, defensive. You don't know what it was like. He was stealing money, he was lying, because he was desperate. I cut in. And you never asked why. The words hung in the air, raw and jagged. Patricia pushed back her chair. You're choosing him over me. Again. I stared at her, heartbreaking. I'm choosing what's right. Michael stood up, holding Lily. I didn't come here to fight, he said quietly. I just wanted her to know she still had family. And in that moment, I saw him, not the boy I used to tuck in, not the man the world had chewed up and spit out, but a father. A tired, wounded, terrified father trying to hold on to what little dignity he had left. He walked toward the stairs, rocking Lily in his arms. We'll sleep downstairs tonight, Grandma. I don't wanna cause trouble. When he disappeared from sight, Patricia let out a long, shaky breath. This is a mistake, she whispered. He's only going to drag you down, Mom. You'll see. I turned to her, tears welling. No, sweetheart. The mistake was thinking love ends when people disappoint you. She looked away, her lips pressed tight. Then she grabbed her purse and left, her heels clicking down the hall like a clock counting down to something I couldn't see coming. The front door slammed. The sound echoed through the house. I stood there, staring at the untouched plates, the candles burning low, the food growing cold. The smell of sweet potatoes, once comforting, now made my stomach turn. I sat back down and let the tears fall, silent and heavy. Upstairs, I could hear Michael softly humming to Lily. That gentle, broken tune filled the silence Patricia left behind. And that's when I realized something I'd been avoiding for years. All the money in the world, all the success, the houses, the cars, none of it meant a thing if love wasn't safe in your home. That night, I promised myself that this house would never again be a place of shame or silence. Not for Michael. Not for Lily. But deep down, I knew Patricia wasn't done. She'd left too calm, too quiet. And if there's one thing I learned raising her, silence was never her surrender. Because sometimes, the worst betrayal doesn't come from what people say. It comes from what they're already planning to do next. I woke up the next morning with the weight of silence pressing against the walls. The kind of silence that isn't peace, but the kind that hides something waiting to break. Michael hadn't come upstairs for breakfast. When I peeked into the living room, I saw him sitting on the couch, still in the same clothes from last night. His eyes were fixed on the phone in his hand, unmoving, unreadable. Morning, sweetheart, I said softly, walking in. Did you get any sleep? He didn't look up. Barely. I sat beside him, close enough to smell the faint scent of baby powder and exhaustion. You've been staring at that phone for a while. Everything okay? He hesitated. Then his fingers tightened around the phone. No, Grandma. Not really. He handed it to me. The screen was cracked, the battery barely holding on. But the message on it burned through me like fire. You think hiding in that big house will save you? You owe me, Michael. Don't make me come find you. It was unsigned. Just a number I didn't recognize. Who is this? I asked, my stomach twisting. Michael's voice was barely a whisper. It's my uncle, Grandma. Mom's brother. Uncle Ray. I froze. Ray? Patricia's brother Ray? He nodded, eyes glassy. Yeah. He's the one who took me in when Mom kicked me out. At first, he helped. Or at least, I thought he was helping. I leaned forward. What happened, Michael? He swallowed hard. He said I could stay in his basement until I got back on my feet. But he started asking for money I didn't have. He said it was for rent, but he knew I was broke. And when I couldn't pay, he started taking things. My watch. My backpack. Even Lily's diapers. Then one night, he told me if I didn't find a way to earn, he'd call CPS and say I was unfit. My hands trembled. He threatened to take Lily? Michael nodded. So I left. We slept in the car for a while until it got towed. After that, the bridge was the only place left. I couldn't breathe for a second. The idea of my grandson and that tiny baby out there because of family made my blood run cold. I swear, I whispered, that man will never come near you again. But even as I said it, I saw the fear in Michael's eyes, a fear that wasn't from yesterday. It was old. It had roots. Grandma, he said quietly, Uncle Ray doesn't let go. When he wants something, he finds a way to get it. And now that he knows where I am. Before I could answer, the baby monitor crackled softly. Lily's cry filled the room, weak, hungry, innocent. I went to warm her bottle while Michael rocked her gently, his hand trembling as he held her. She deserves better, he murmured. So much better than this. I placed a hand on his shoulder. And she's going to get better. As long as I'm alive, both of you will. For a moment, the tension eased. But it didn't last long. Because around noon, my phone rang, and this time, it wasn't a message. It was Patricia. Her voice was cold, brittle. Mom, I think we need to talk about Michael. I sighed. If you're calling to scold me again. She interrupted, sharp. No. I'm calling because Ray called me. He said you've been harboring Michael at your place. I froze. Harboring? Patricia, he's your son. I know who he is, she snapped. But Ray's been worried. He said Michael stole from him. He said he left with some of his things. Lies. I said, my voice rising before I could stop it. That man used him like a pawn and left him to rot. You of all people should see through that. There was a long pause. Then Patricia's tone softened, but not with warmth, with something worse. Pity. Mom, I think you're letting guilt cloud your judgment. Michael's not a kid anymore. He makes his own choices, and you can't fix him by throwing money at the problem. I'm not throwing money, I said. I'm giving him a home. Same thing, she muttered. The silence stretched again, heavy and sharp. Then she said something that made my skin crawl. Ray wants to come by and talk. Just to clear the air. My chest tightened. No, Patricia. Absolutely not. But before I could continue, she hung up. I stood there for a moment, phone still in my hand, the sound of the dial tone echoing like thunder in my ears. Ray was coming. By evening, the clouds outside had turned the color of bruises. The house felt uneasy, even Lily's laughter seemed smaller, muffled by the tension sitting in every corner. Michael tried to act calm, but his eyes kept darting to the windows. He's not gonna just talk, Grandma. You know that, right? I nodded. I know. We waited. Hours passed. Then, just as the clock hit 9 o'clock, a loud knock rattled the door. 3 hard bangs. Then silence. Michael froze. Lily whimpered in his arms. Stay here, I said, walking toward the door. My hands shook, but my voice didn't. Don't open it, he whispered, panic in his tone. I opened it anyway. Ray stood there, older, rougher, and meaner than I remembered. His grin was thin, like a knife. Evening, Auntie, he said smoothly. Heard you've got my boy staying here. Your boy, I said coldly. He's not yours to claim. He smirked. He owes me money. And he took something of mine when he left. Michael stepped into the doorway behind me. I didn't take anything but my daughter, he said. And you can't have either of us. Ray's smile dropped. That's not how debts work, boy. Then take it up with me, I said firmly. But you're not stepping foot in my house. He leaned in closer, his voice low. You think your fancy gates and private jets make you untouchable? Everyone's got something to lose. The threat in his tone made my stomach twist. I stood taller. You've already lost your soul, Ray. That's punishment enough. For a moment, his jaw tightened. Then he stepped back. Fine. Keep your broken family. But when the truth comes out, don't say I didn't warn you. He turned and walked off into the night. His truck's engine growled, fading into the distance. Michael's voice cracked. He's not done, Grandma. He'll be back. I wrapped my arms around him, holding him like I used to when he was small. Then we'll be ready, I whispered. Because this time, we're not running. He broke down then, his tears hot against my shoulder. I can't lose Lily, Grandma. Not again. Not to them. You won't, I said. Not while I'm breathing. Outside, Thunder rolled across the sky. Inside, the house felt like it was holding its breath again, waiting for the next storm to break. But this time, I wasn't afraid. Because now, I understood something Patricia and Ray never would. Money can buy walls, but only love makes them safe. And I'd defend that love, even if it meant standing alone. The next few days passed like walking through fog. You know that kind of silence where you can hear your own heartbeat? That's what filled the house. Every sound felt like a warning, the creak of the stairs, the hum of the fridge, even the soft whimper from baby Lily's crib. Michael barely slept. Every time headlights passed outside, he'd jump up and check the window. He was terrified that Ray would come back. And truth be told, I was too. But I had to be the calm in the storm. I'd lived long enough to know that fear only wins when you let it grow roots. So I kept cooking, humming, and pretending like the air wasn't trembling around us. Until that morning. The morning everything fell apart. It started with Lily's cry, not her usual soft wail. This one was sharp, gasping, desperate. I rushed into the nursery, and my heart nearly stopped. Her little chest was heaving, her skin pale as milk. "Michael!" I screamed. He stumbled in, eyes wild. "What's wrong?" "She's burning up," I said, pressing my hand to her forehead. "Lord, she's on fire." He froze for half a second, then grabbed the diaper bag. "We gotta go. Now." The drive to the hospital was a blur of sirens and prayers. I held Lily in my arms while Michael drove, his knuckles white around the wheel. The baby whimpered, her breath shallow, eyes fluttering open and closed like she was fighting to stay with us. "Please, God," I whispered, "don't take her. Not after everything." When we burst through the ER doors, the nurses took one look and rushed her in. The sound of that tiny heart monitor filled the air like thunder in my chest. Michael sank into a chair, head in his hands. "This is all my fault," he said. "Everything I touch falls apart." I sat beside him. "You stop that right now. You hear me?" He didn't look up. If I hadn't taken her out that night, if I hadn't run from Ray, then she might not even be here, I said. "You saved her, Michael. You gave her a chance." He lifted his head, eyes red. "Then why does it feel like I keep failing her?" I reached over, cupping his face in my hands. "Because you love her. And loving someone that much hurts sometimes. But don't confuse pain with failure, baby." He broke then, just folded into my arms like that scared little boy I used to tuck in at night. And for the first time in years, he let himself cry. Not the quiet kind. The kind that shakes the soul clean. Hours passed before the doctor came out. A woman with kind eyes and a voice soft as cotton. "She's going to be all right," she said. "It was an infection, but you brought her in just in time." I could have collapsed right there. Relief flooded me so fast it almost hurt. Michael exhaled like he hadn't breathed in days. "Can I see her?" "Soon," the doctor said. "She needs rest." When she walked away, Michael leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "Maybe God still hasn't given up on me," he whispered. I smiled through tears. "Oh, he never did. You just stopped looking up long enough to see him." For a few quiet moments, everything felt lighter. The kind of peace that makes you think maybe, just maybe, the storm's finally over. But I should have known better. Storms don't end that easy in this family. Because when we got home that evening, there was a black car parked by the gate. Michael's grip on the steering wheel tightened. "It's him." My chest went cold. "Ray." He nodded. I stepped out of the car before he could stop me. The wind whipped my coat around as I walked toward that dark shape waiting by the fence. But when the door opened, it wasn't Ray. It was Patricia. And beside her stood a man I didn't recognize. Tall, suit pressed, eyes hard. "Mom," she said, her voice clipped. "This is Mr. Graham. He's from Child Protective Services." My heart dropped. "What?" Michael froze behind me. No, you didn't." Patricia crossed her arms. "I didn't have a choice, Michael. You're unstable. You've been moving Lily from place to place. You can't even prove you can take care of her." "She's my daughter," he shouted, his voice cracking. "And she's safe now." Safe. Patricia snapped. Living off Mom's charity? Hiding from your uncle? That's not safety, that's chaos. I stepped between them. Patricia, you have no right bringing strangers into this. You should have come to me first. I did, she said coldly. But you made your choice. You chose him over me. Because he needed saving. I shouted. Mr. Graham cleared his throat, formal and detached. I'm not here to judge. Just to observe. We received a report of an unsafe environment for the child. Michael's face went pale. You mean Ray? The man said nothing, which told me everything. I turned to Patricia. You went to him, didn't you? She looked away. He just wanted to help. Help? I hissed. He threatened Michael. He left that baby with nothing. And now you're siding with him? Her eyes flashed with something like guilt, but it was gone before I could catch it. Enough, I said. You've done enough damage for one lifetime. Mr. Graham stepped forward. I'll need to speak with both of you privately tomorrow. Until then, please make sure the child remains here and has access to her prescribed medication. I nodded stiffly. You'll get your meeting. When they left, Michael collapsed onto the steps. His hands shook so badly he dropped his keys. I can't do this anymore, Grandma, he whispered. First Ray, now Mom, they all want to take her. Maybe they're right. Maybe she'd be better off without me. I knelt beside him, grabbing his shoulders. Don't you ever say that again. Lily needs you. Not your money, not your perfection, you. He buried his face in his hands. I'm so tired of fighting. I know, I said softly. But sometimes, God lets us fall just to show us who'll pick us back up. He looked up at me through tears. And who's picking you up, Grandma? I smiled faintly. You are, baby. Every time you keep going. The house went quiet again. The only sound was the wind tapping against the windows. Then, around midnight, a knock came at the door. Slow. Deliberate. Michael jumped. Please tell me that's not. Stay here, I said, standing. I walked to the door, heart pounding, every step heavier than the last. When I opened it, the porch light flickered once, and there stood the last person I expected. Ray. But he wasn't alone. Behind him was Patricia, her face pale, eyes wet with tears. Mom, she whispered, voice shaking, I made a mistake. Ray's hand clamped on her arm. Shut up, he growled. I stepped forward. You let her go, Ray. He smirked. Or what, Auntie? You'll call the cops. Go ahead. Tell them how your golden daughter called CPS on her own son. Tell them how this family eats itself alive. Patricia whimpered, trying to pull away. I didn't mean for it to go this far. But Ray's grip only tightened. That's when Michael appeared behind me, face hard, eyes burning. You let her go, he said, voice low and deadly calm. Now. Ray laughed. Oh, the bridge boy finally found his voice. And before I could blink, Michael swung. One hard punch, the sound of it cracked through the night like a gunshot. Ray stumbled back, clutching his face. Patricia screamed. Lily started crying upstairs. For a moment, no one moved. Then I said the words I'd been holding in for years. You don't belong here, Ray. Not in my house. Not in my family. Get out before I make sure you never come back. He glared at us, then spat on the ground. This isn't over. He stormed off into the night. Patricia stood there shaking. I didn't know he'd do that, she whispered. I thought he just wanted to talk to Michael. I sighed, wrapping an arm around her trembling shoulders. You let a snake into the garden, sweetheart. But it's not too late to cut the grass. She broke down, sobbing into my chest like she was the child again. And that's when I realized, maybe this wasn't just Michael's breaking point. Maybe it was hers too. Because sometimes, it takes losing everything to see where love was hiding all along. And as I looked at my family, bruised, crying, but together, I knew one thing for sure. The fight wasn't over, but this time, we'd face it side by side. The house felt heavier that night, like even the walls were holding their breath. Patricia sat on the couch, her hands trembling in her lap. Michael paced near the window, jaw tight, eyes darting to the driveway every few seconds, as if Ray might appear again out of the dark. I stood by the mantel, clutching the edge just to steady myself. My heart was still pounding from what happened outside. No one spoke for a while. Just the sound of Lily's soft breathing from upstairs, and the clock ticking on the wall, each tick louder than the last. Finally, Michael turned around. "Why, Mom?" he said, his voice cracking. "Why'd you call CPS on us?" Patricia flinched. "I didn't mean for them to come here. I didn't know what else to do." "You could have come to me," he said sharply. "But you didn't. You went to him." Her eyes filled with tears. "Ray promised he could help. He said he knew a way to make things right between you and me." Michael laughed bitterly. "Ray doesn't fix things. He ruins them. You of all people should have known that." Patricia buried her face in her hands. "I was desperate, Michael. You left without saying a word. You took Lily and disappeared. Do you have any idea what that felt like? I thought you were dead somewhere." His voice softened, but his anger didn't fade. "You think I wanted to run? You think living under a bridge with a baby was some dream of mine? I ran because Ray told me if I ever came back, he'd make sure Lily was taken from me. And now you handed him that chance." Patricia looked up, eyes wide. "He said you were on drugs, that you'd gotten violent." I didn't know what to believe. Michael stared at her in disbelief. "So you believed him over your own son?" Silence. The kind that cuts deeper than words. I stepped in then, my voice low but firm. "Patricia, you've made mistakes. We all have. But this one. This could have broken what little we had left." She looked at me like a child caught in the rain, lost, scared, guilty. "I know, Mama. And I'm sorry. I really am. I just wanted my family back." Michael turned away. "You don't fix family by tearing it apart." That one line hung heavy between us. Then, after a long pause, Patricia whispered, "There's something you both need to know. Something I've been hiding for years." Michael frowned. "What are you talking about?" She took a shaky breath. "Ray, he's not just your uncle." My stomach dropped. "Patricia." She looked at me, tears streaming now. "I can't keep lying anymore, Mama. Not after tonight." Michael's voice hardened. "What do you mean he's not just my uncle?" Patricia's hands shook. "Ray's your father." The room went dead still. Michael blinked, like he hadn't heard her right. "What?" She nodded weakly. "I was 19. I didn't tell anyone. Not even you, Mama. I was ashamed." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. "Patricia, dear Lord." She went on, her words breaking apart like glass. "He wasn't supposed to know." I tried to move on, to raise Michael without his shadow hanging over us. But when Ray found out years later, he used it against me. Said if I ever told anyone, he'd destroy us. Michael stumbled back, his face pale. "You mean the man who beat me, who left me under a bridge, who nearly got my daughter taken away, is my father?" Patricia sobbed. "I didn't want you to find out like this. I thought keeping it buried would protect you." He laughed, but it wasn't joy. It was pain turned inside out. "You protected me. You let me grow up thinking he was just some bitter drunk uncle. You let him come around, yell at you, treat me like trash, and you still protected him? I didn't know how to stop him," she cried. "He had power over me for so long. He knew how to twist everything, make me feel small. By the time I realized what he was doing, it was too late." Michael ran his hands through his hair, pacing. "My whole life has been one big lie." I stepped closer to him. "Michael, listen to me." He turned, eyes full of fire and heartbreak. "No, Grandma. You don't understand. That man hurt me, humiliated me. And now I find out he's the reason I even exist." Patricia reached for him, but he pulled away. "Don't touch me." She froze, her hand trembling in midair. For a moment, I saw every mistake, every wound, sitting between them like a ghost that refused to leave. Then I said softly, "The truth hurts, baby. But it's still better than living under lies." Michael looked at me, his voice barely above a whisper. What am I supposed to do with this, Grandma? How do I live with knowing he's my father? You live, I said. That's how you win. He sank onto the couch, covering his face. Patricia sat on the edge of the chair, staring at the floor. Neither could look at the other. Finally, Patricia said, I wanted to tell you so many times. Especially after Lily was born. But I was afraid you'd hate me. Michael lifted his head, eyes red and wet. I don't hate you, Mom. I don't know how to forgive you yet. That single line broke something inside her. She sobbed quietly, her shoulders shaking. I walked over and sat beside Michael, putting my hand on his knee. Baby, forgiveness ain't something you find overnight. It's something you grow into, one breath at a time. He nodded slowly, staring at nothing. Outside, the wind picked up again, brushing against the windows like whispers of the past refusing to stay quiet. Then, from upstairs, Lily started to cry. A small, fragile sound that cut through the tension like light through fog. Michael stood instantly. I'll get her. When he left, Patricia looked at me, broken. Mama, how do I fix this? I sighed. You start by telling the truth, all of it. And then you pray he's strong enough to handle it. She wiped her tears. There's more. I froze. More? She nodded. Ray, he's been in debt for years. When he came to me, it wasn't just about Michael. He wanted money. He said if I didn't help him, he'd go to the police and claim Michael was an unfit father. That's why I called CPS first, to try and get ahead of whatever lie he planned to spread. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. So this was all a setup? Yes, she said quietly. But I didn't realize how far he'd go. I thought if I cooperated, he'd leave us alone. Michael came back down holding Lily against his chest. She was half asleep, her tiny hand gripping his shirt. He looked at Patricia, really looked at her this time. You let him use you, he said softly. But you're still my mom. And Lily deserves to know her grandmother, not the woman Ray tried to turn you into. Patricia's eyes widened. You still want me in her life? He nodded slowly. I don't know how to trust you right now. But I want to try. For her. That was all it took. Patricia broke down again, but this time, her tears weren't from guilt, they were from relief. I stood there watching my family, shattered, scarred, but still holding on. And for the first time in years, I felt something shift. The truth had burned us raw. But maybe, just maybe, it had also set us free. Michael kissed Lily's forehead and looked at us both. No more secrets, he said. From now on, we protect each other. No matter what. I nodded, smiling through my tears. That's how family survives, baby. We fall apart, but we don't stay broken. And as the night faded into quiet again, I knew this was far from over. Because the truth might have set us free, but Ray wasn't done yet. The morning after that confession, the whole house felt different. Quieter. Not peaceful, not yet, but fragile, like the air itself was trying to heal after a storm. I was up before sunrise, sitting in the kitchen with a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. The light was just starting to creep through the curtains, soft and grey. For once, nobody was yelling. Nobody was crying. Just the soft hum of the refrigerator and Lily's tiny babbles drifting from the baby monitor. Michael walked in a few minutes later, barefoot, his hair messy, his face pale from a sleepless night. He didn't say a word at first, just poured himself some coffee and sat across from me. We didn't need to speak. The silence said everything. After a while, he sighed. Grandma, you ever feel like your whole life's been a lie, but you're still too scared to live a new one? I looked at him for a moment, then smiled faintly. Baby, every one of us hits a wall like that. The trick ain't avoiding it. It's learning how to climb it. He rubbed his face with both hands. I just don't know where to start. Start with today, I said. You hold your baby. You feed her. You keep her safe. That's all that matters right now. He nodded, slow and tired. Patricia's still asleep. Yeah, I said softly. She cried herself to sleep last night. Lord knows she's got her demons to face too. He stared down at his cup. I meant what I said. I don't hate her. But I can't forgive her overnight either. I reached across the table and took his hand. Forgiveness ain't a switch, baby. It's a seed. You just keep watering it until one day, it blooms. He gave me a faint smile. You always got a way of making heavy things sound easy. I chuckled. That's just age, sugar. You live long enough, you learn not to let every storm drown you. The kitchen stayed quiet after that. And then, from upstairs, we heard Lily's soft cry, that small reminder that life still moves forward, no matter how broken we feel. Michael stood up. I got her, he said, heading upstairs. I stayed there for a while, listening to his footsteps fade, my heart heavy but hopeful. By noon, Patricia had come downstairs. Her eyes were swollen, her hair unbrushed, and she looked 10 years older than yesterday. Morning, Mama, she murmured. Morning, baby, I said gently. You hungry? She shook her head. I don't think I could eat. I poured her a cup of coffee anyway. Drink this. It won't fix much, but it'll warm you up. She took it and sat down, her fingers wrapped tight around the mug. Did Michael say anything? Not much, I replied. But he's here. And that's more than we had yesterday. She nodded, tears welling again. I don't know how to make it right. Then stop trying to make it right, I said softly. Just start by being honest. Be present. That's all that boys ever wanted. Her voice cracked. He doesn't even look at me the same. He will, I said. When the pain fades. But you gotta let him see you trying. Patricia looked toward the window, whispering, Ray's still out there. What if he comes back? I felt my stomach tighten. If he does, he'll find out this family ain't as weak as he thinks. That afternoon, the three of us sat in the living room together for the first time in days. Michael had Lily on his lap, bouncing her gently while Patricia watched from the other side of the couch, unsure of her place. Lily's getting so big, Patricia said softly. She looks just like you when you were a baby. Michael didn't answer right away. He just smiled faintly, looking down at his daughter. She's got her mom's eyes, he said. Patricia's face softened. She was a sweet girl. I'm sorry for what you lost. He glanced at her, his voice low. You don't gotta be sorry for that part. Life took enough from me already. Lily reached out and grabbed Patricia's finger, just for a second. That tiny touch broke the wall between them. Patricia smiled through her tears, whispering, Hi, sweetheart. For the first time, Michael didn't pull away. He looked at me then, almost like asking silently, Is this okay? I nodded. Let her hold her, baby. Patricia hesitated, and when Michael finally handed Lily over, she held that child like she was holding a second chance. Tears streamed down her face as she rocked her granddaughter gently, whispering, You're my light, little one. You're what'll keep us together. Michael's eyes softened. She deserves that, a family that won't lie to her. Patricia looked up, voice trembling. Then I'll start now. No more lies. I felt something shift in that room. The air grew lighter, warmer. Like healing had started to take root, quiet, but real. The next few days were calm. We kept things simple, meals together, long talks, and laughter here and there. Michael started working in my garden again, finding peace in the dirt and sunlight. Patricia spent her time reading to Lily or helping me cook. But peace has a way of feeling borrowed when you know danger still lurks. One evening, Michael came in from the yard holding his phone, his face pale. Grandma, look at this. It was a voicemail. A man's voice. Rough, low, threatening. You think you can hide from me, boy? You got something that belongs to me. I'll be seeing you soon. It was Ray. Patricia's hands began to shake. Oh God, he found us. Michael's jaw tightened. No. I'm done running. He's not taking anything from me again. I stepped between them, my voice steady. Michael, listen to me. You're not alone this time. He comes near this house, we handle it together. Family, remember? He nodded slowly, though his eyes were still burning with anger. I won't let him hurt Lily. That night, none of us slept much. Every creak, every car passing by, made us flinch. But Ray never came. Days turned into weeks, and his threats faded into silence. Still, we stayed on edge, because silence from a man like Ray never means peace. It means planning. One morning, I found Michael sitting by the window, watching the sunrise. He looked calmer somehow, older, wiser. "I've been thinking," he said softly, "about forgiveness. You were right. It's a seed. And I think it's starting to grow." I smiled. "That's good, baby." He nodded. "I can't change who Ray is. Or what Mom did. But I can decide who I'll be for Lily. That's the best kind of healing there is," I told him. "When pain turns into purpose." He smiled faintly. "You always got a way of saying things just right." I laughed quietly. "Well, you know me. I've been through a lifetime of pain, might as well turn it into wisdom." Patricia walked in then, her hair pulled back, a determined look on her face. "I've made a decision," she said. Michael frowned. "About what?" "I'm pressing charges," she said. "Against Ray. For everything. I'm done being scared." Michael stared at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Good. It's time he faces what he's done." I felt a rush of pride, not because the pain was gone, but because we were finally fighting it instead of running. Patricia picked up Lily, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "For you, baby. Grandma's not scared anymore." That night, as the house settled into quiet again, I sat on the porch watching the moon rise over the trees. Michael came out, wrapped in a blanket, and sat beside me. "You think we'll ever really be free of him?" he asked. I looked at him and smiled softly. "Freedom don't always mean forgetting, sugar. Sometimes it just means the hurt don't own you no more." He leaned back, nodding. "Yeah, maybe we're getting there." And when Patricia joined us a few minutes later, holding Lily in her arms, the three of us just sat there under that silver moonlight, scarred, but together. For the first time in a long, long while, the house didn't feel haunted. It felt like home again. But deep down, I knew this peace was still sitting on the edge of a storm. Because men like Ray don't disappear. They wait. And when they come back, they make sure you remember them. And sure enough, the next morning, when I went to fetch the mail, there was a single envelope on the porch. No return address. Just our names scrawled across it in angry handwriting I'd know anywhere. Inside was a photograph, Ray, standing near a familiar bridge. And on the back, 6 words that froze my blood cold. "See you soon, my family's mine." The photograph in my trembling hand felt heavier than stone. That handwriting, I'd know it anywhere. Ray. 4 days, we'd prayed he was gone for good. But seeing that note, it was like every ounce of peace we'd built got snatched straight out the window. "See you soon, my family's mine." I must have read those 6 words a dozen times, hoping somehow the letters would rearrange themselves into something less terrifying. But they never did. They just stared back at me like a promise. When Michael came downstairs and saw my face, he froze. "Grandma, what's wrong?" I handed him the envelope without a word. He tore it open, scanned the message, and his whole body went still. His eyes darkened, jaw clenched so tight I thought he might shatter his own teeth. He found us. Patricia walked in next, holding Lily. Her voice shook before she even knew what we were looking at. "What happened?" Michael's voice came out low, flat. "It's Ray." She nearly dropped the baby. "No, no, no. That can't be. He doesn't know where we live." "He knows," Michael said, looking out the window. "He always finds a way." The room went quiet. The kind of quiet that buzzes in your ears. I tried to stay calm, to think rationally, but my hands were trembling so bad I could barely hold my coffee cup. "Michael, call the sheriff," I said. He nodded, grabbed his phone, but before he could dial, there was a loud thud outside, like something hitting the porch railing. We all jumped. "Stay here," I whispered, moving toward the door. "Grandma, don't." But I was already walking, my heart pounding hard enough to drown out every thought. I pulled back the curtain, and froze. There was a box on the porch. Small. Wrapped in brown paper, tied with a red ribbon. And sitting on top of it, was a single baby shoe. I gasped and stumbled back. Patricia screamed, clutching Lily tighter. Michael rushed to the door, grabbed the box, and threw it open. Inside was a cracked photograph, one of him, his mother, and Ray from years ago, torn right down the middle, with Lily's name scribbled across it in black marker. He slammed the box shut and kicked it across the floor. "His playing games," he growled. "He wants to scare us." "Well, it's working," Patricia said through tears. "Michael, he'll hurt us. You know he will." "I'm not running this time," Michael said, voice trembling but steady. "He already took too much from me." I took his arm. "Baby, listen. Don't let his anger become yours. That's what men like him feed on. You protect your family, not with rage, but with reason." Michael didn't answer. He just walked to the window and stared out into the dark yard, whispering, "If he comes near her again, I swear." "Michael." I snapped. "Don't say that. Don't even think it." He turned toward me, eyes full of something deep, not hate, exactly, but pain. "Grandma, you don't know what he's capable of." "Yes, I do," I said softly. "But I also know what you're capable of. And I didn't raise no killer." Patricia's voice broke. "What do we do, Mama? Do we call the police? Do we leave?" I thought for a moment, then shook my head. "No. We stay right here. He wants fear, we give him peace. We let the law handle the rest." But the truth was, deep inside, I wasn't sure the law would be enough. Night fell hard that evening. The air was heavy, still, almost too quiet. Every creak in the floorboards sounded like footsteps. Every rustle of the wind felt like a whisper from the past. Michael barely ate dinner. Patricia kept Lily close, humming softly just to keep her calm. I sat by the front window all night with a flashlight and my Bible, whispering prayers under my breath that no one but God could hear. Around midnight, the security lights flicked on outside. "Grandma." Michael's voice came from the hallway. "I saw it," I said quietly, eyes still on the yard. "Stay with your mama and the baby." He didn't listen. He came up beside me, holding a baseball bat he'd pulled from the closet. "I'll handle it." Before I could stop him, he yanked open the door and stepped out onto the porch. "Ray," he shouted into the darkness. "I know you're out there." The night swallowed his voice. Only the hum of crickets answered back. Then, from somewhere near the trees, a voice, slow, taunting. "Well, look who's grown a backbone." Patricia screamed from inside. I grabbed my phone, dialing the sheriff. Michael gripped the bat tighter, shouting, "You stay away from my family." Ray stepped into the light then, older, thinner, but with that same wicked grin. "Your family? You think she's yours to keep?" Michael's voice shook. "She's my daughter." Ray chuckled. "And what about your mama? She used to be mine, too. Till she got tired of playing house." "Don't talk about her." "Why not? She's right there, isn't she?" Ray leaned forward, his smile twisting. "You brought the whole circus together again. Ain't that sweet?" Patricia stepped onto the porch behind me, trembling but fierce. "Get off my property, Ray. You don't belong here." He smirked. "You gonna make me?" "I already did once," she said. "And I'll do it again." Something shifted in Ray's face, that dark flash of rage I'd seen before. "You think I came here to fight?" "Nah, baby. I came here for what's mine." He looked straight at Lily through the window. Michael lunged forward before I could stop him. The bat swung, once, twice, but Ray was quicker than I remembered. He dodged, shoved Michael backward, and in the struggle, the bat clattered to the ground. I screamed, "Stop. Please." Patricia grabbed the phone, shouting into it, "He's here. He's attacking my son." They crashed into the porch railing, wood splintering under their weight. The sound of Lily's wail pierced through the chaos. "Michael!" I yelled. He finally got the upper hand, pushing Ray back hard. "You'll never touch her again." Ray stumbled, caught his balance, and froze when blue and red lights flashed across the driveway. The sheriff's car screeched to a halt. Officers jumped out, guns drawn. "Hands where we can see them," one shouted. Ray turned toward them, laughing. "Oh, sure. Now you show up." On the ground, another officer barked. Michael raised his hands, breathing hard, face streaked with sweat and tears. Ray hesitated, eyes darting between Michael and the cops, then finally dropped to his knees. They cuffed him right there in the mud while he kept shouting, "She's mine. She's my blood." Patricia held Lily tighter, whispering through her tears, "No, she's not. Not anymore." When the sheriff approached me, I could barely speak. "You'll keep him away?" I asked, voice trembling. "We'll make sure of it," he said. "He won't be coming back." But I didn't believe him. Not completely. I'd seen too much evil in that man's eyes to think a cell would change him. By dawn, the sun finally broke through the clouds. The air felt different, lighter somehow, though the weight of the night still clung to our hearts. Michael sat on the porch steps, staring out at the empty driveway. "It's over," he whispered. Patricia came beside him, placing her hand on his shoulder. "You saved us, baby." He shook his head slowly. "No. Grandma did. She kept us from becoming like him." I smiled softly from the doorway. "No, sugar. You did that. You chose love over hate. That's what ends the cycle." He nodded, eyes glistening. "I just want peace now. For Lily. For all of us." Patricia kissed his cheek, whispering, "Then let's build it together." As I watched them, a warmth spread through my chest. For the first time in what felt like forever, I saw hope on both their faces. Not the fragile kind, the real kind. The kind that grows from pain, not despite it. But deep inside, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end. Not yet. Because when you've lived long enough, you learn that evil doesn't always die, sometimes, it just sleeps. And before the chapter of our peace could truly begin, one last truth was waiting to be revealed. One none of us saw coming. The house was quiet again. Too quiet. After all the shouting, crying, and chaos, silence almost felt like a stranger. It had been 2 weeks since the night the police took Ray away. 2 weeks of holding our breath, trying to remember what peace even sounded like. Michael had gone back to work, but he was different now, softer, steadier, like he'd finally laid down a burden he'd been carrying too long. Patricia spent her mornings in the garden with Lily, humming lullabies and planting new flowers where the old ones had wilted. As for me, I spent most of my days watching them. Listening to the sound of laughter returning to a home that had forgotten how to breathe. But every now and then, I'd still see the shadows, not in the corners of the room, but in their eyes. The fear. The memory. The what if he comes back silence that hung in the air like dust you couldn't quite sweep away. One afternoon, Patricia came to the porch where I was sitting with my tea. She looked nervous, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. "Mama, can we talk?" I smiled softly. "Always." She sat down beside me, eyes glistening. I wrote Ray." The words hit like a wave I wasn't ready for. "You what?" She nodded. "I wrote him. Not to forgive him, not yet. But to tell him he doesn't own my fear anymore. That I'm not the same woman he broke years ago." I watched her, speechless for a moment. The strength in her voice was trembling, but it was real. "Baby," I said gently, "that took courage. But are you sure you're ready for that kind of door to open again?" She looked out at the yard. "I'm not opening the door for him. I'm opening it for me." That's when I saw it, the shift. The healing. Patricia wasn't running anymore. She wasn't trying to erase the past, she was reclaiming it. I reached out, squeezed her hand. "You did right, child. Healing ain't about pretending it didn't happen. It's about choosing peace anyway." She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I just want Lily to grow up knowing her mama isn't afraid anymore." That night, after everyone went to bed, I sat alone in the living room, lights low, house still. The envelope from the sheriff's office lay on the table, unopened. They'd said it contained Ray's statement, what he told them after the arrest. For days, I'd been avoiding it. Part of me wanted to know, part of me didn't. But something in Patricia's words that afternoon gave me courage. So I picked it up, unfolded it, and read. Most of it was the same, anger, denial, excuses. But near the end, there was one line that froze me cold. Tell Michael I never hated him. I just didn't know how to love what reminded me of what I lost. I sat there for a long time, tears streaming silently, because in those words, I saw something ugly, but also something human. Ray was broken, yes. But somewhere under all that rage, there was a man who'd never learned how to heal. And that's when I realized, forgiveness isn't saying what someone did was okay. It's saying I refuse to let it poison me anymore. A few days later, we decided to take a trip, just the three of us and little Lily. Not on the jet this time. Just a drive up to the coast, where the waves meet the cliffs and the air smells like salt and second chances. Michael packed the car, Patricia grabbed the snacks, and I made sure Lily had her favorite blanket, the one with the little yellow ducks. As we drove, the world outside our window turned softer. Green hills, blue skies, sunlight flickering through the trees. Patricia turned to me from the front seat. "Mama, I didn't realize how much we needed this." I smiled. "Sometimes peace ain't found in where you live, it's found in where you breathe." Michael chuckled from the driver's seat. "You always got a saying for everything." "Amham," I said, sipping my tea from a travel mug. "That's because I've lived long enough to know every storm ends, but not every heart remembers how to dry." He looked at me through the rearview mirror, eyes soft. "You really believe that, Grandma?" "I do," I said. "But it takes time. And love. The kind that forgives slow and holds tight." We stopped by the ocean later that afternoon. Lily ran toward the shore, giggling, her tiny feet sinking into the sand. Patricia chased after her, laughing. And for the first time, I saw her laugh with her whole soul. Michael joined them, picking Lily up and twirling her in his arms. The sunlight caught their faces, a mother, a son, a child, 3 generations finally breathing in peace. I just stood there watching, feeling something warm swell in my chest. Gratitude. Relief. Joy. The kind that comes after you think you've lost everything, and somehow God gives it all back, made new. That evening, as we sat by the water, Patricia leaned her head on my shoulder. "Mama," she whispered, "what if he never changes?" I kissed her hair softly. "Then that's his story to carry. Not yours." She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I just hope Lily never knows that kind of pain." "She won't," I said firmly. "Because she's being raised in love now. And love leaves no room for fear." Michael sat beside us, holding Lily as she drifted to sleep. "Grandma," he said quietly, "do you ever think we'll stop looking over our shoulders?" I smiled at him, brushing a strand of hair from Lily's forehead. "One day, baby. When you realize the past can't chase you if you stop running from it." He looked out at the horizon. "Then I guess it's time to stop running." The waves whispered against the rocks, the sun slipping low, a fireball melting into gold. And for the first time in years, I felt peace that didn't come from safety, but from surrender. Because sometimes, the hardest battles ain't fought with fists or fear. They're fought in the quiet, in the choice to keep loving even when life's been cruel. And as I watched my family, my broken, healing, beautiful family, I realized something. The real victory wasn't that Ray was gone. It was that we were still standing. Together. When we got back home that night, Patricia tucked Lily into bed, humming the same lullaby she used to sing back when she was little. Michael kissed his baby's forehead, whispering, "You'll never know that kind of pain, my girl." And as I turned off the lights, I whispered one last prayer, not for protection, but for peace. Because we'd finally learned that love doesn't erase the past. It redeems it. And that's the part Ray could never take away. Sometimes the people who hurt us are the ones who never learned how to love themselves. But when you choose forgiveness over bitterness, you break the chains they tried to put on your soul. Family isn't about blood or pain, it's about who chooses to heal with you.